A week before the Albanese government unveils its third budget, the opposition's tax plans are still unclear. Live to Andrew Clennell here, he joins me at the desk. So what did Sussan Ley have to say to you yesterday?
Well, the Deputy Liberal leader, I think she let the cat out of the bag. At first she said we're going to have a different proposal which is a lot fairer, and then she reversed. You'll see it here. Best to watch the grab. Have a look at this. The government had a go at you when it made its stage 3 tax cut changes in January, when your immediate response on Sky was you'd return those tax cuts to higher income earners in full. Will the opposition go to the election with a plan to return those tax cuts or some of those tax cuts to the higher end?
Well, I've answered that question, as has the government, as has the opposition comprehensively, Andrew, and we will have a plan that is lower, simpler and fairer in its approach to taxation. We will definitely respond to the government's budget with something that articulates a clear difference.
So that means, from what I'm hearing, we're going to have a war on tax cuts at the election, Sussan Ley.
No, that's your words, Andrew. I didn't say that. What I said was we would have a budget that clearly delineates the difference between ourselves and the Labor Party.
And you'll have different tax cuts, you said.
Always back in. I didn't say that.
But if you're talking about aspiration there, and that was in answer to a question about the stage 3 tax cuts, are you looking to deliver greater tax cuts at the top end in your election policy? You said you were after a fairer system. You indicated a different tax cuts policy.
Andrew, we will announce our policy in due course. I like you very much. I'm not going to announce it on your show. You will simply have to wait and see.
At least she likes me,
Yeah, I was just about to say, at least she still likes you. I don't know whether I would after that, but anyway, her own doing, not your fault. So what?
Yeah.
Where do we get to?
I think I'm confused, but I think she's given us a hint there. Because I know they've worked a lot of policies up at the start where she says a fairer, simpler tax system.
Yeah.
They're going to do something with the brackets. And that's going to be the war at the election.
Okay.
That's going to be the war at the election.
Yeah. Well, I wonder why she was so reluctant to...
Well, I guess she realised that she probably shouldn't announce the policy on Sunday agenda, although I would encourage that at every opportunity.
Oh, me too. Anyway, let's talk about Tony Burke. What did he say about wages and inflation?
Well, this is interesting because they keep saying wages aren't causing inflation. And we know that they haven't been the prime driver, but they're starting to be, right? So wages have gone up. The last figures, and we got figures in a couple of weeks, were 4.2% for the year. In the last quarter, 0.9% for private sector workers, 1.2% for public sector workers. You do that over a year, that's nearly 5%, right? So he has to admit here that even though they're saying we want higher wages, if we're going to see a rate cut, we have to see that growth in wages tempered. Here was the Workplace Relations Minister.
A lot of people want to lean in and always blame workers for inflation. The reality is, and just look at what's been happening, at the same time that wages growth has gone from flatlining to sustainable growth, inflation has been moderating. That's exactly what has been happening. What the government's been doing is seeing inflation moderate by providing responsible cost of living relief in a way that doesn't add to inflation.
It's fair to say you want wages to come down a bit or not to rise as quickly, don't you?
There's no doubt that when you're asking for people to not go backwards, you can do that with a smaller increase now than you could last year. The mathematics just show that clearly.
So I've been having a double take last few days because on that rate cut, wages, inflation sort of issue, I keep reading that there could be a hike tomorrow. I can't see it. But someone pointed out today that the way inflation's gone over time, typically the Reserve Bank would hike it now.
Yeah.
That would be the end of days for the Albanese government, just about. I can't see it happening, but I do think Michelle Bullock will have a pretty, a very sort of precautionary outlook, a very conservative outlook. But that's why I guess tomorrow's meeting's so critical, and it's 1 week before the budget. And someone admitted to me the other day it's going to be a dull budget. It's as simple as that. It has to be in terms of inflation. The government's still getting bagged for spending too much, as it is.
Yeah.
But it's going to be duller than the last two because, I mean, they've done the HEX thing, but that doesn't kick in straight away. They'll do the rental assistance thing. They'll extend the energy bill relief thing. But They just don't want to be seen to be acting against the Reserve Bank. Michelle Bullock hangs over Jim Chalmers' shoulder when he delivers this budget speech, Laura.
Well, I tell you what would be worse for Jim Chalmers is not an interest rate rise tomorrow, an interest rate rise after the budget, directly after the budget,
good point.
would be way worse.
Imagine that.
Yeah, that would be certainly a comment on the budget. But I think Jim Chalmers will say, and in putting together this budget, he would certainly be running some of these measures by Michelle Bullock, wouldn't he?
They claim not. I
Or
mean,
the Treasurer?
Well, Stephen Kennedy.
the Treasury?
Stephen Kennedy can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in a roundabout way. I'm not the separation of powers here.
I think when they were talking about Phil Lowe conversations, they used to describe them as general conversations. But I'll tell you what, if that happened, it would have happened about a month ago. It wouldn't be happening right now.
Yeah.
So, they've had a really bad couple of weeks, haven't they? I've started to lean more towards a hung parliament now, I've got to say. I mean, we're still a long way from the election.
Labor
but
minority.
I think this incident in WA with Nanette Simons, it's on every front page. It's on the front of every TV bulletin, and it's about the security of people. It goes to Labor's weak spot. And this is just the critical battleground. I mean, it used to be elections were always decided before they got to WA because of the time zone, but there's a bit more confidence from the Liberals they can pick up to 4 seats there now, and that's minority government. Even if they pick up a couple, you're nearly in minority government. So I just feel the way things can turn if there are some rate cuts, but the polls are that consistent and they consistently show Labor sliding into power again, but not with a majority.
No.
How is that going to be arrested? Well, even if there's a rate cut, people have just been hammered away at for nearly 2 years. Not sure they're going to thank you. But, I mean, I pointed this out with you last week. One of the focuses of the budget, we've seen that with the HECS announcement, is young people because they are fighting on two fronts. No, make no mistake. It's the Liberals and the Greens they're fighting against. And that is concerned with the Greens taking the votes of young people.
Yeah, and perhaps an outlier that they need to consider as well. Whilst the Teals are eating into the Liberal vote, you got to look at like Daly-style independence. Anyone looking at Daly on the Labor side would be concerned about, more independents in a similar vein to her actually targeting Labor seats, and that is the outlier at the moment. They're not declared at the moment, but you can't rule it out for the next election.
As I reported yesterday too, with the redistribution, there's every chance Daly will be taking on Chris Bowen or Jason Clare. They're either going to lose a seat in northern Sydney, and the speculation's been Kylie Tink's seat, or one in southwest Sydney, is the belief of those in the know. We'll know in 2 weeks. And so you could see a situation where Daly's seat goes and she then runs against Chris Bowen or Jason Clare. Wouldn't that be a fascinating contest?
It certainly would be. Plenty to discuss. We'll see you soon, Andrew. Thank you.